New York, December. The biting cold of winter seeped through every layer of clothing, turning the streets glittering with Christmas lights into a dazzling and unforgiving scene. Ethan Caldwell, a 32-year-old white American millionaire, stepped out of a high-rise office building in the heart of Manhattan. His expensive gray suit clung to his body, but his shoulders slumped as if bearing a sky full of gloom. His deep blue eyes, usually sharp in million-dollar negotiations, were now clouded with pain. Just a few hours earlier, at a lavish Christmas party on the Upper East Side, Sophia, his girlfriend of 4 years, had rejected his proposal in front of dozens of curious onlookers. The sparkling diamond ring he had chosen so carefully was pushed back toward him, accompanied by a cold smile. "Ethan, do you think a ring can make up for never being your priority?" The giggles of her friends echoed like knives against his pride. Ethan wandered down the avenue, gripping the velvet box with the ring inside his coat pocket. He paid no attention to the hurried crowd rushing past the shopping bags stuffed with Christmas gifts or the jingling bells from street vendors. His mind was trapped in that moment when Sophia turned her back on him, leaving him with an emptiness he had never known. He had spent a decade building his financial empire, rising from a nobody to the CEO of a leading investment firm. But now, that success felt meaningless. He wondered, what had I traded away to gain all this, only to lose the one I loved? Across the street, under the dim light of a closed, Christmas-decorated shop, Maya Jackson, a 25-year-old Black American woman, sat curled up on the sidewalk. Her old coat, worn at the shoulders and patched in several places, did little to shield her from the cold gnawing at her fingertips. Her natural curly hair was tied back with a red ribbon, the last gift from her mother, before she passed away from a terminal illness 3 years ago. Next to Maya sat an empty paper cup on a piece of cardboard with a scribbled message, "A little kindness for Christmas, thank you." But most passers-by walked right past her, their eyes indifferent, as if she were invisible. Still, Maya didn't let the cold or the apathy extinguish the spark of hope inside her. She looked up, admiring the twinkling Christmas lights across the street, reminding her of childhood in Harlem, when she and her mother hosted Christmas parties for the whole neighborhood. On those nights, their tiny apartment was filled with laughter, the smell of gingerbread cookies, and the carols Maya sang in the church choir. But after her mother's death, Maya lost her job as a bartender when the bar downsized. With no one left to lean on, she couldn't afford rent and ended up homeless. Still, she told herself, as long as I'm breathing, there's still a chance. Christmas always brings miracles, right? As Ethan crossed the street, his heavy steps caught Maya's attention. She noticed the sadness in how he kept his head down, as if bearing an invisible wound. At that moment, she forgot about the cold and her insecurity about her situation. With a bit of courage, she called out, her voice clear but slightly hesitant. "Hey, are you okay? You look like you just lost your whole world." Ethan stopped, surprised. He turned to look at the young woman sitting on the sidewalk, her warm brown eyes full of quiet determination. In his world, no one ever stopped to check on a stranger, especially not someone lost in grief. Not really," he admitted, his voice hoarse. He stepped closer, unsure why he even responded. Maybe it was the sincerity in her voice, something he rarely encountered in boardrooms or glitzy galas. Maya smiled and tilted her head slightly. "I get it. Sometimes life throws punches at us, right? I'm Maya, by the way." She reached out even though she knew it might seem odd in this setting. Ethan hesitated, then took her hand, feeling the cold from her slender fingers. "Ethan," he replied, his voice a little softer. "What are you doing out here in this cold?" Maya shrugged, her smile unwavering. Oh, just trying to survive the winter. I lost my job and home, but I still have these lights to look at. She pointed to the glittering Christmas lights above. They remind me that things will be okay. Like my mom used to say, Christmas always brings hope. Ethan followed her gaze, the lights reflected in his eyes. Maya's heartfelt but straightforward words touched a hidden corner of his soul. He thought of his mother who used to organize warm Christmases when he was a child before she passed away, and he buried himself in work to forget the pain. "You remind me of my mom," he said, almost whispering. "She loved Christmas too, but I've forgotten it for a long time." Maya leaned in, curious. "So, what happened to you? I'm not judging, just... You look like you need someone to listen." Ethan hesitated, but Maya's genuine eyes made him lower his guard. He briefly told her about the failed proposal and how Sophia had turned his dream into a public humiliation. As he spoke, he felt a deep empathy from Maya, not pity, but proper understanding, as if she had once carried heartbreak. "I thought she was everything." Ethan concluded, his hand unconsciously tightening around the velvet box in his pocket. "But maybe I was wrong." Maya nodded, her gaze gentle. "Sometimes people leave to make space for something better. I learned that when I lost my mom. She always said, when one door closes, Christmas will open another." Her words made Ethan pause. He looked at Maya, a girl with nothing but a tattered coat and an empty paper cup, yet she possessed a kind of optimism he, with all his money and status, had lost. A cold gust of wind blew by, making Maya shiver, and Ethan suddenly realized she was trembling from the chill. "You can't stay here all night," he said firmly. "Let me find you somewhere warmer." Maya shook her head, her defensive instincts rising. "Thank you, but I'm fine. I don't want to bother you." But Ethan wasn't listening. "You're not a bother. It's just, I can't leave you out here." He extended his hand, a gesture both inviting and sincere. Maya looked at him, weighing her options. She knew kindness from strangers could come with strings attached. But something about Ethan, the raw sadness, the honesty in his eyes, made her want to believe him, if only this once. "All right," she said, standing up and gathering her cardboard sign. "But just for one night, and I'll find a way to repay you." Ethan smiled for the first time that day. It felt like a small ray of light pierced through the darkness inside him. They walked together beneath the Christmas lights, two people from vastly different worlds, brought together by a fleeting moment that promised to change them forever. The cold of Manhattan spared no one, weaving through the streets sparkling with Christmas lights, as if testing the willpower of anyone daring to face it. Ethan Caldwell and Maya Jackson walked side by side, a strange pair amid the hurried crowd. In his elegant gray suit, Ethan led the way with a steady posture, though his mind was still in turmoil after Sophia's rejection. Maya, in her old frayed coat and a paper cup tucked under her arm, tried to keep pace, but her eyes kept glancing at Ethan, as if trying to guess how long his kindness would last. She was used to fleeting promises from strangers, often ending in indifference or conditions. "The hotel's just around the corner," Ethan said, his voice deep but firm, pointing toward a low building with a blinking sign that read Harbor Inn. The warm yellow light from the hotel lobby spilled out, offering a sense of welcome amid the freezing night. Maya stopped, hesitating. "Are you sure, Ethan? I mean, I don't want you to spend money on me. I can find another shelter." Her voice was quiet, tinged with insecurity, but her brown eyes still held a spark of resilience. Ethan turned to face her directly. "Maya, I'm not doing this out of pity. It's just, I can't leave you out there. Not tonight." He paused, as if searching for the right words. "You listened to me, even though you had no reason to. Now let me do this for you." His words were sincere, lacking the arrogance of someone wealthy, and Maya could feel that. She nodded, though a worry lingered in her heart. If I accept this help, will I become a burden to him? They entered the hotel lobby, where the warmth from the electric fireplace instantly enveloped them. The floor was polished marble. A small Christmas tree, decorated with tinsel, stood in the corner, and a faint scent of pine filled the air. At the front desk, a middle-aged woman with glasses typed busily on a keyboard. As Ethan and Maya approached, the receptionist's eyes moved from Ethan's tailored suit to Maya's tattered coat, pausing with a look full of suspicion. "Good evening," Ethan said, pulling a credit card from his wallet. "I'd like to book a room for her for one night." He gestured toward Maya, who stood slightly behind, gripping her paper cup to hide her unease. The receptionist with a name tag that read Mary raised an eyebrow. "One room." "What's her name, sir?" Mary's tone was cold, almost challenging. Maya felt her face flush, as if she'd been stripped bare under a stranger's gaze. She stepped forward, her voice small but clear. "Maya Jackson." "I thank him for helping me." Mary typed something on the computer, but kept her eyes fixed on Maya. "We'll need ID," she said evenly. Maya bit her lip and rummaged through her coat pockets, but found only an expired library card. I don't have any," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I lost my wallet a few months ago." Mary sighed, looking at Ethan as if to say, "What are you doing with this girl, sir?" "Our policy requires." Ethan cut her off, his tone sharp but still polite. "She's my friend, and I'm paying for the room. If you need ID, use mine." He pushed his credit card and ID across the counter, his gaze firm. Maya stood silently, her heart pounding. She wasn't used to anyone standing up for her, especially not against the condescending stares she faced daily on the streets. Mary, though reluctant, nodded and began processing the booking, but not without throwing Maya one last glance. While waiting, Ethan and Maya sat on a sofa in the corner of the lobby. Maya clutched her paper cup as if it were her final shield. "Thank you," she said quietly. "But you didn't have to do this. I know I look like trouble." Ethan shook his head, his eyes softening. "You're not trouble, Maya. I'm just doing what I think is right. And," he hesitated, "you made me feel less alone, even if just for a few minutes out there." His words touched something profound inside Maya. She looked at him, realizing that Ethan bore wounds that were not easily seen beneath his wealthy exterior. She decided to open up, if only a little. "You know, I wasn't always on the street," she began, her voice low. "I grew up in Harlem in a tiny apartment filled with love. My mom threw the best Christmas parties in the neighborhood. Every year she baked gingerbread cookies, invited all the neighbors, and sang carols with the church choir. Those were the happiest days of my life." Ethan listened, picturing a young Maya beaming as she sang under Christmas lights. "Sounds like a dream," he said, his voice tinged with longing. "My mom loved Christmas too. She used to make a gingerbread house every year, but I stopped thinking about those things after she passed. Work took over everything." Maya nodded, her eyes full of understanding. "I get it. When my mom died, I felt like I lost the world. I worked as a bartender and tried to hang on, but then the bar cut staff and I couldn't pay rent. Since then, I've lived on the street, but I always believed Christmas would bring something better." Ethan looked at her, surprised by Maya's emotional strength. He thought about his life full of material comfort, yet lacking the warmth that Maya still managed to carry despite having nothing. "You're stronger than I thought," he said sincerely. Maya smiled, though her eyes showed a flicker of fear. "Strong or not, I'm still scared. Scared that your kindness is only temporary, and that I'll end up back on the sidewalk." Her confession made Ethan pause. He wanted to say something reassuring, but Mary called to them from the front desk. "Room 204. Here's the key. she said, pushing a keycard toward Ethan. He took it, then turned to Maya. Come on, I'll take you up. They stepped into the elevator. The cramped space heightened their sense of closeness. Maya felt her heart race from the hotel's warmth and Ethan's presence. She wondered whether this could be the beginning of a miracle or just a fleeting moment on Christmas. When the door to room 204 opened, Maya was overwhelmed by its simple coziness. A bed with crisp white linens, a bedside lamp casting a warm yellow glow, and a window overlooking the glittering street below. She turned to see Ethan standing in the doorway. I don't know what to say to thank you, she said, her voice choking with emotion. Ethan smiled, still holding the keycard. Just get some rest, Maya. We'll figure out how to make tomorrow better. He turned to leave but paused, as if he had more to say. Thank you for reminding me that Christmas can still bring hope. The door closed, leaving Maya in the warmth of a space she hadn't dared to dream of for months. She sat on the bed, hugged her paper cup, and whispered to herself, Mom, could this be the door you were talking about? In the hallway, Ethan walked away, his hand brushing against the velvet box in his coat pocket, feeling like a small light had begun to shine in his darkness. Christmas night was far from over, and both could feel that this encounter was leading them toward unexpected turns in the road ahead. Room 204 of the Harbor Inn was quiet, filled only with the ticking of the wall clock and the soft golden glow of the bedside lamp casting shadows on the beige wall. Maya Jackson stood by the window, looking at the Manhattan street glittering with Christmas lights. Snow had begun to fall, tiny flakes drifting like little specks of light, reminding her of nights she once stood with her mother, watching the snow through the window of their apartment in Harlem. But now she was here in a warm room she had never dared to dream of, thanks to the kindness of a stranger, Ethan Caldwell. She hugged her paper cup, the only thing she had left from her life on the street, her heart torn between gratitude and unease. Do I deserve this help? Or is this just a dream that will vanish with the sunrise? A soft knock at the door startled her. She opened it to see Ethan standing in his gray suit, but with his tie removed, looking less formal. I just wanted to check if you were okay, he said in a warm, deep voice. And I brought this. He held up a paper bag from a nearby convenience store. Inside was a sandwich and a can of orange juice. Maya smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. Come in. Don't stand out in the cold hallway. They sat across from each other, Maya on the edge of the bed, Ethan in an old armchair by the desk. The small room created a sense of intimacy, as if they were no longer strangers who had only met a few hours ago. Maya took a bite of the sandwich, and the melted cheese made her realize how hungry she was. It's been a long time since I had anything warm like this, she said, slightly embarrassed. Ethan watched her, his deep blue eyes reflecting curiosity. How long have you been out there? Maya, I mean. If you don't mind telling me. Maya set the sandwich down and took a deep breath. She wasn't used to sharing her story, but something about Ethan, the sincerity, the quiet sorrow in his eyes, made her want to open up. About a year, she began, her voice low. I used to work as a bartender at a bar in Brooklyn. It's not a glamorous job, but enough to pay rent. My mom passed away 3 years ago from cancer, and I didn't have anyone else. I couldn't find a new job when the bar laid people off. My savings ran out, and then I was evicted. I tried staying in shelters, but sometimes they were full, and I had to sleep on the street. Ethan listened, his heart tightening. He thought about his life with a penthouse apartment and first-class flights, but he had never felt the loneliness Maya had just described. I'm sorry, he said, his voice hoarse. I can't imagine how hard that must have been. Maya shrugged, offering a faint smile. I learned how to survive. But what scared me the most wasn't the cold or the hunger. It was the feeling of being invisible like the world didn't care. Sometimes I wondered if I had any worth left. Her confession struck a deep chord in Ethan. He reached into his coat pocket where the velvet box containing the ring still rested like a painful reminder of his failure. He pulled it out and opened it, revealing the sparkling diamond under the lamplight. "I thought this would change everything," he said, his voice tinged with sadness. "I proposed to Sophia tonight in front of her friends in a fancy restaurant. I thought that's what she wanted, a pricey ring, a grand gesture. But she said no. She said I was never really present, that work was always my priority." Maya looked at the ring, its brilliance reflected in her eyes. But instead of awe, she tilted her head and spoke with quiet honesty. "It's beautiful, Ethan, but love can't be bought with a ring. Maybe she wanted your time, wanted to feel seen, not just given something." Her words were sharp but straightforward. They made Ethan freeze for a moment. He thought about the past years, missing Sophia's birthdays, canceling vacations for meetings, and gradually pushing her away. "You're right," he admitted, closing the velvet box. "I was too caught up in work. I forgot what matters." Maya smiled, but her eyes revealed a trace of sadness. "I used to be like that too, in a different way. When my mom was alive, I dreamed of becoming an event planner, turning days like Christmas into something magical for people. But after she passed, I just tried to survive. I forgot that dream. I feared that I'd only be disappointed again if I dreamed too big." She paused, looking down at the paper cup. "And now, sitting here, I'm scared your kindness is only temporary. Tomorrow, I'll be back on the street, and all this will feel like a dream." Ethan looked at her, his heart aching. He realized that Maya wasn't just strong. She carried a deep fear too, a fear of being abandoned and forgotten. "Maya," he said, his voice steady, "I'm not promising to change the whole world, but I promise that tonight, you don't have to worry about going back out there. And if you'll let me, I'd like to help you find a new path." He paused, smiling softly. "You remind me of my mom. She always believed Christmas was the time to start over." Maya looked at him, her eyes wavering between hope and doubt. She thought of her mother, who once said, "Christmas is when hearts open, Maya. Don't be afraid to believe in kindness." She nodded, her voice small. "Okay, Ethan, but I want to repay you somehow. Maybe I'll sing a Christmas carol for you like I used to at church." She laughed for the first time that night, and her smile lit up the whole room. Ethan laughed too, a weight lifting off his shoulders. "I'll hold you to that. But for now, you should rest. I'll be in the room next door if you need anything." He stood, but before leaving, he turned back. "Thank you, Maya, for giving me a reason to believe tonight wasn't just a failure." He walked away, leaving Maya with a swirl of thoughts. She lay down on the bed, the soft blanket wrapping around her body, and whispered, "Mom, could this be the beginning I've been waiting for?" In the hallway, Ethan went to his room, his hand brushing against the velvet box. The ring was no longer a symbol of pain, a reminder that he could choose a different path, one that began with the compassion of a homeless girl under the glow of Christmas lights. Morning light slipped through the gap in the curtains of room 204 at the Harbor Inn, casting a soft glow on Maya Jackson's sleeping face. She woke slowly, taking in the comfort of the bed, a luxury she had forgotten after months spent living on the streets. The sounds of traffic from Manhattan drifted up, mingling with memories of the night before, the conversation with Ethan Caldwell, the man who had given her shelter, and more unexpectedly, a glimmer of hope. Maya sat up, her eyes landing on the paper cup resting on the table, her heart caught between gratitude and the fear that everything might vanish. Should I stay or leave before I become a burden? A gentle knock came at the door. Maya opened it to find Ethan dressed in a blue shirt and slacks, looking more refreshed than the night before. He held 2 paper cups, the aroma of coffee spreading through the morning chill. "Good morning," he said with a soft smile. "I figured you could use a little energy." Maya took the coffee, the warmth seeping into her hand. "Thank you, Ethan. You're always one step ahead, aren't you?" She smiled, but her brown eyes still held a trace of caution. They sat in the corner of the room, Maya on the bed, Ethan in the armchair. Ethan looked at her as they sipped their coffee, as if weighing something. "Maya, I've been thinking about last night," he began, his voice low. "About what you said, that love can't be bought with a ring, and sometimes we must recognize what really matters. You made me realize I must face what happened, instead of running away." Maya nodded, curious. "So what are you going to do? Go back and talk to Sophia?" Ethan shook his head, his gaze resolute. "No, I don't want to get back with her, but I need to prove to myself, and maybe to the world, that her rejection didn't crush me. My boss Victor just texted me about an investor dinner tonight. It's a big opportunity to re-establish my footing." He paused, looking directly at Maya. "And I want you to come with me." Maya froze, nearly dropping her coffee cup. "Me? Go with you? Ethan, are you sure? I mean, look at me." She gestured at her worn coat and scuffed sneakers. "I don't belong in a place like that. I'll embarrass you." Insecurity welled up along with memories of the condescending looks she'd received when asking for jobs or food. She thought of Christmas parties in Harlem, where she once felt she belonged, but a luxury restaurant in Manhattan was a different world entirely. Ethan leaned forward, his expression serious. "Maya, you won't embarrass me. I'm not asking you out of pity, but because I trust you. You have a sincerity I rarely see in my world. I need a friend by my side, not a flawless model." His words touched something deep in her, but she still hesitated. "But I don't know how to behave at events like that. What if I say something wrong or do something clumsy? You're taking a risk on me." Ethan smiled, a warm smile that eased the tension. "If you do something clumsy, I'll do something even clumsier to balance it out. Let's consider ourselves a team." He stood, offering his hand. "Come on, we need to get ready. I'm taking you to buy something suitable. No arguments." Maya looked at his hand, her heart pounding. She wanted to refuse to run from the idea of facing judgmental stares, but something in Ethan, the unconditional trust, made her want to try just this once. They left the hotel and entered a fashion store on Fifth Avenue, where racks of shimmering dresses seemed designed for Christmas. Maya felt overwhelmed, like she'd wandered into a world that wasn't hers. A sales associate, a young woman with a professional smile, approached Ethan, but her eyes flicked over Maya with a hint of doubt. Ethan didn't notice, pointing toward the evening gown section. "We need a dress for tonight. Something elegant, but not too flashy." Maya stood in front of the mirror in the dressing room, her hands trembling as she touched the scarlet gown Ethan had chosen. The silk hugged her figure and complemented her brown skin, but she barely recognized herself. "I look like a fraud," she whispered, thinking of the days she wore second-hand clothes to work. But when she stepped out, she saw Ethan looking at his phone. Then he looked up, his eyes widening. "Maya, wow. You look like you just stepped out of a movie." He smiled, and for the first time that night, Maya felt a hint of confidence. "But what about these?" she said, pointing to her old sneakers. Ethan laughed and led her to the shoe section. "All right, try these." He picked out a pair of black heels, and when Maya tried them on, she wobbled, nearly falling. Ethan caught her, and they both laughed, drawing glances from other shoppers. "I've never worn these things," Maya exclaimed, holding onto his arm. "I'm going to look like a baby deer learning to walk." Ethan laughed loudly, helping her steady herself. Then you'll be an adorable baby deer. Just keep practicing, you'll get it. At that moment, amidst the laughter and awkwardness, Maya felt a new connection to Ethan. They weren't just two strangers anymore. They were two people facing a challenge together, laughing through the unexpected. But as they left the store, shopping bags in hand, Maya felt a thorn of worry. She thought about the party people like Sophia, and the possibility that she might be mocked. Can I do this? Or will I ruin everything for Ethan? As if reading her thoughts, Ethan paused in front of the hotel entrance. Maya, I know you're nervous. So am I. But tonight, we'll do just fine. Are you ready? Maya looked at him, her brown eyes shining with determination, though her heart was still racing. I'll try. But if I spill wine on someone, you're taking the blame. Ethan laughed, raising his hand in a promise. Deal. They stepped back into the hotel, carrying hope and fear, unaware that this invitation would lead them into a storm of prejudice and trials. But at this moment, under the dim light of the hotel lobby, they were a team ready to face whatever awaited. The sleek black car glided through the glittering Christmas-lit streets of Manhattan, carrying Ethan Caldwell and Maya Jackson to a luxury restaurant in Midtown. Maya sat in the back seat, her hands clutching the crimson dress tightly, feeling as if her heart was pounding. The silk hugged her body, and the black high heels demanded her full concentration to stay balanced. But what worried her most wasn't her appearance. It was the eyes that awaited her at the party. She glanced at Ethan, the white American man in a black tuxedo beside her, looking like he had stepped out of a fashion magazine. He gave her a reassuring smile, but Maya still felt like a bird trapped in a golden cage. Do I belong here? Just be yourself, Maya, Ethan said, his voice deep and calm. Those people only care about appearances, but you have something they don't: authenticity. Maya nodded, but inside she recalled the job rejections for being not the right fit or the condescending looks from strangers when she asked for change. She took a deep breath, reminding herself, Mom, if Christmas brings an opportunity, I won't run from it. The car stopped before the Crystal Room, its glass facade glowing with chandeliers hanging like stars. A uniformed valet opened the door, and Maya stepped out, the December chill biting her skin. Ethan offered his hand, and she took it, the warmth of his grip steadying her. They walked through the glass doors into a lavish space. Tables draped in white silk wine glasses, sparkling under the lights, and a towering Christmas tree adorned with silver ornaments. Soft violin music played, but all Maya could hear was the thumping of her own heart. As they entered the main hall, the eyes of the guests, business people in tailored suits, women in elegant gowns, swept over them. Some recognized Ethan and nodded politely, but when they looked at Maya, their expressions shifted from surprise to curiosity, or even suspicion. Maya tightened her grip on Ethan's hand, forcing a smile. They're looking at me like I'm from another planet, she whispered. Ethan leaned in and whispered back, They're just jealous because you look better than all. His words made Maya laugh, easing the tension if only slightly. But the moment shattered as a sharp voice rang out from behind. Ethan Caldwell. I didn't expect you so early. Maya turned to see a woman in a deep blue gown, her blonde curls perfectly styled. Sophia, Ethan's ex, stood there, a smile on her lips, but eyes as cold as ice. She looked Maya over from head to toe, her smile twisting into disdain. And this is, who, a Christmas charity project of yours? Sophia's voice was sugary, but edged with steel, drawing a few curious glances from nearby guests. Maya's face burned, as if she'd been slapped in public. She wanted to respond, but the words caught in her throat. Ethan squeezed her hand, his voice firm. This is Maya Jackson, My friend, and I'd appreciate it if you showed some respect, Sophia. Sophia raised an eyebrow as if insulted. Oh, I was just curious. You don't usually bring this type of company. She emphasized this type, making Maya feel smaller than ever. Before Ethan could respond, a middle-aged man in a gray suit approached, his eyes sharp as a blade. Victor, Ethan's boss, clapped a hand on his shoulder with a practiced smile. Ethan, you surprise me. I thought you'd come alone after last night's incident. He glanced at Maya, his look barely hiding its condescension. And this young lady is? Maya took a deep breath, forcing her voice to stay even. Maya Jackson, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you. She extended her hand, but Victor only nodded without shaking it. Interesting, he said flatly. Ethan, we need to talk. Some investors want to see you. Ethan hesitated, looking at Maya. She nodded, whispering, Go. I'll be fine. But as he walked away with Victor, Maya felt like she'd been left alone in a den of wolves. Sophia remained arms crossed. You know, Maya, she said coolly, Ethan is a very important man. He needs someone who fits his world. Do you think you can keep up? Maya tightened her grip on her glass, trying to stay calm. I'm not trying to keep up with anyone. I'm here because Ethan invited me. Sophia scoffed. How sweet. But you should know he'll realize his mistake soon enough. People like you don't belong here. Her words cut like a blade, dragging up memories of rejection and humiliation. Maya wanted to run, to retreat to the sidewalk she knew so well. But then she remembered Ethan's trusting gaze. I can't let her win that easily. Ethan returned, sensing the tension. Everything okay? He asked, glancing between Maya and Sophia. Maya nodded, though her eyes now burned with resolve. Fine, but I don't think Ms. Sophia likes me very much. Sophia opened her mouth, but Victor called her from across the room, and she walked away with one last icy glance. Ethan took Maya's hand and led her to the banquet table. Don't let her shake you. You're 100 times stronger than she is. They sat down, but Maya could still feel the eyes of the room on her. She thought of her mother, who taught her to stand tall in the face of challenges. Maya, her mother used to say, Christmas is the time to shine. She squeezed Ethan's hand under the table and whispered, Thank you for being here. Ethan smiled and gave a reassuring squeeze back. We're a team. Remember. But as the dinner began with conversations about investments and contracts, Maya knew the real challenge had only begun. Sophia and Victor were watching, and she could feel a storm building, ready to sweep away everything she and Ethan were trying to build. The air inside the crystal room had grown stifling, despite the sparkling chandelier lights that shimmered like diamonds, and the soft violin music that floated through the space. Maya Jackson sat beside Ethan Caldwell, trying to maintain a smile. Still, the guests' gazes, business people in expensive suits and glamorous women in evening gowns, felt like needles pricking at her pride. The crimson dress and black heels helped her blend in on the outside, but inside, she still felt like a homeless girl from Harlem, lost in the elite world of Manhattan. Ethan, the white American man in a black tuxedo, sensed her tension and gently squeezed her hand under the table. You okay? He whispered, his deep blue eyes concerned. Maya nodded, but before she could reply, Sophia, Ethan's ex-girlfriend, approached the table, her fake smile as polished as a mask. She sat beside Ethan, her deep blue dress hugging her figure, drawing every eye in the room. Ethan, you know how to surprise people, Sophia said, her voice sweet but sharp. I thought you'd be home recovering from last night. She glanced at Maya, her look full of contempt. But it seems you found a new comfort. Maya felt the blood rush to her face, but she forced herself to stay calm, remembering her mother's words. Don't let anyone make you bow your head, Maya, especially during Christmas. She offered a faint smile and replied, "I'm not a comfort, Ms. Sophia. I'm Ethan's friend." Sophia raised an eyebrow as if offended by the comeback. "Friend. How cute. But you know places like this require a certain standard." Her words were like knives, and a few nearby guests stifled giggles. Ethan gripped Maya's hand tighter, his voice cold. "Sophia, that's enough. If you have nothing kind to say, don't say anything at all." But Sophia only laughed and leaned toward Ethan like Maya didn't exist. "Oh, Ethan, I'm just trying to help. You need someone who understands this world, not a girl who'll drag you down." She lowered her voice, but Maya still heard it. "That homeless girl is just a mistake, and you know it." Maya felt like she'd been slapped. The word homeless echoed in her ears, like a curse dragging back memories of freezing nights on the sidewalk, of indifferent stares from passers-by. She wanted to get up to flee, but her legs felt frozen. Seeing the pain in her eyes, Ethan stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Sophia, you have no right to insult her. Maya is 100 times more worthy than you." The tension at the table skyrocketed. All eyes turned toward them. Victor, Ethan's boss, walked over, his sharp gaze glinting beneath thin-rimmed glasses. "Ethan, calm down," he said, his voice low and commanding. "You're drawing unnecessary attention. We have investors here, and I don't want any trouble." He glanced at Maya, as if she were the source of the problem. "Young lady, perhaps you should excuse yourself and let us handle this." Maya felt her heart shatter. She stood about to apologize and leave, but then she thought of her mother, the woman who had hosted Christmas parties in Harlem, where everyone was welcome no matter who they were. She took a deep breath, her voice trembling but steady. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here because Ethan invited me, and I've done nothing wrong. If Ms. Sophia or you think I don't belong, that's your problem, not mine." Her words brought a hush over the entire table. Sophia was stunned. She hadn't expected a homeless girl to talk back. Victor frowned, but Sophia let out a scornful laugh before he could say anything, her voice dripping with venom. "How touching. But you know what, Maya, Ethan needs someone like me who can help him shine, not a burden from the streets." She turned to Ethan. "Choose Ethan. I'm willing to forget last night and take you back for our benefit. Or do you want to keep going with—" Her Ethan looked at Sophia, then at Maya. Her eyes reflected hurt, but also a strength he had never seen before. He thought about the years he had sacrificed everything, time, emotions, to please people like Sophia and Victor, only to be left empty. He stood tall, his voice clear and unwavering. "I choose the one who doesn't treat me like a chess piece. Maya, let's go." He took Maya's hand and led her away from the table, leaving behind Sophia's glare and Victor's silent fury. The guests murmured in shock, but Ethan didn't care. Maya followed, her heart pounding, part astonishment, part gratitude. As they passed the towering Christmas tree, the silver ornaments reflected off her dress, like little lights reminding her that she could still shine no matter the judgment. Out in the lobby, the cold December air hit them, but Maya felt warmth radiating from Ethan's hand. "I'm sorry for dragging you into this," he said, his voice filled with regret. Maya shook her head, her brown eyes shining with resolve. "Don't apologize. You stood up for me, which means more than any party ever could." She paused, then smiled. "And you know what, I think my mom would be proud of me tonight." Ethan smiled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "I think so too. Come on, let's find a place without judgmental stares." They stepped into the winter night, hand in hand, not knowing that this decision would lead them into an even bigger storm that would test their loyalty and bond to the very limit. Snow fell gently over the streets of Manhattan, coating the sidewalks in a soft layer under the shimmering glow of Christmas lights. Maya Jackson and Ethan Caldwell stepped out of a taxi in front of the Harbor Inn, their breath forming white clouds in the frigid air. Maya's crimson dress still shimmered beautifully, but her eyes were clouded by the insults from Sophia and the scornful look from Victor at the crystal room. Ethan held her hand in his black tuxedo, as if trying to pass strength into her. But they both knew that leaving the party had opened a new door filled with instability and risk. Inside room 204, Maya slipped off her high heels, the aching in her feet, a painful reminder of the unfamiliar world she had just entered. She sat on the bed holding her old paper cup, her gaze lost in thought. Ethan stood by the window watching the snowfall. His phone buzzed again and again in his hand. "Victor," he said in a low voice, staring at the screen that displayed his boss's name. "He's not pleased." Maya looked up and said softly, "You should answer it. Maybe he wants to explain." Ethan shook his head and silenced the phone. "No, Maya. I know what he wants. He'll ask me to apologize, to go back to Sophia, and to cut ties with you, to protect the company's image." He turned around, his deep blue eyes resolute. "But I won't do that. Not after what they said to you." Maya smiled weakly, but inside guilt began to rise. If I hadn't gone with him, would he be facing this? She took a deep breath, her voice trembling. "Ethan, you want to protect me, but maybe I should go. You have a career, a future. I'm just a homeless girl. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything." Her words cut like a knife, not only to Ethan, but to herself. She thought about the days in Harlem when friends distanced themselves after she lost her home, how she had learned not to rely on anyone to avoid being hurt. "I'm used to getting by alone," she added, trying to hide her tears. Ethan walked over and sat beside her, his expression serious. "Maya, don't say that. You're not a burden, and you're not the reason for anything. I left the party because I couldn't stand how they treated you, how they treated me, and the very meaning of integrity." He gently touched her hand, his voice warm and low. "You gave me the courage to realize I no longer want to live a fake life. I'd rather lose my job than lose the person who makes me want to live honestly." Ethan's words lit a fire in Maya's heart, but they also frightened her. She thought of her mother, who once taught her that Christmas was a time to believe in kindness and strength. "But if you lose your job, you might regret it," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't want you to look at me one day and think, she ruined everything." Ethan shook his head and held her hand firmly. "I would never think that. Maya, you reminded me of things I'd forgotten, like how my mom used to make a gingerbread house every Christmas, or how you believe things can get better. You're the reason I want to fight." Maya looked at him, her brown eyes filled with emotion. She remembered the night she sang carols at the Harlem church, and her mother clapping proudly. "My mom used to say Christmas is when the heart leads the way," she whispered. "But I'm scared, Ethan. I'm scared that I don't deserve your kindness and disappoint you." Ethan smiled gently. "You could never disappoint me, Maya. Just being here, being yourself, that's enough." Ethan's phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Victor. "Meet me tomorrow morning. You have one last chance to fix this. Don't let that girl drag you down." Ethan read the message aloud, his voice tinged with bitterness. Maya bit her lip, guilt swelling inside her again. "You should meet him," she said firmly. "Hear what he has to say. Maybe you can negotiate, keep your job without giving me up." She stopped, realizing how painful it was even to say those words. Ethan set the phone down and looked directly at her. "Maya, I don't negotiate with people who want me to live a lie, but I'll meet Victor to clarify that I won't play his game." He stood, but before leaving, he turned back. "You'll stay here, right? Promise me." Maya nodded, though her heart was still in turmoil. "I promise. But Ethan, if you ever need me to go, say so. I'll understand." Ethan shook his head, his eyes unwavering. "I don't want you to go anywhere. We're a team. Remember?" He left the room, leaving Maya with a swirl of thoughts. She stood and walked to the window, watching the snowfall. She thought about her dream of becoming an event planner, about the Christmas parties she once dreamed of hosting, where no one was judged for who they were. Mom, what should I do? Stay and fight or leave to protect him? In the hallway, Ethan returned to his room, his hand brushing the velvet box in his pocket. The ring was no longer a symbol of pain, but a reminder that he was searching for something real. Yet Victor's message hung over him like a shadow, signaling that the real battle for him and Maya had just begun. Beneath the soft glow of Christmas lights, they both felt the weight of the past pressing in, but also a glimmer of hope that their friendship might be strong enough to survive. The night deepened at the Harbor Inn, the silence broken only by the gentle tapping of snow against the window and the dim glow of Manhattan's streetlights. In room 204, Maya Jackson sat on the bed, her hands tightly clasped, her deep brown eyes still clouded by worry after the events at the Crystal Room. Her crimson gown now hung on the wall, replaced by an old hoodie she had kept from her bartending days. She thought about her earlier offer to leave, about her fear of becoming a burden to Ethan Caldwell, the man who had stood up for her in front of Sophia and Victor. Should I stay and fight beside him, or leave so he can preserve his life? As it was, Ethan knocked and stepped in, carrying a small paper bag from the lobby downstairs. The white American man, now in a rolled-up blue shirt, looked tired, but still smiled. I brought some snacks, he said, setting the bag on the table. And something else. He pulled out a small box filled with tinsel and a few glittering plastic ornaments. I found this in the lobby. I thought we could do something to make this room feel less gloomy. Maya's eyes widened in surprise, a genuine smile breaking across her face for the first time that night. You're decorating for Christmas in here, Ethan. You never stop surprising me. They got to work draping tinsel around the lamp and hanging ornaments on a small plastic tree the hotel staff had left in the corner. Maya told stories about past Christmases in Harlem when she and her mother made a tree from dry branches they'd collected, decorated with bottle caps and ribbon. My mom always said, "Christmas doesn't have to be expensive, just heartfelt," she said, as she tied a red ornament onto the tree. Ethan listened closely, his deep blue eyes shining with admiration. "You remind me of my mother," he replied. "She used to make gingerbread houses, but I haven't felt the Christmas spirit until I met you." At that moment, amid the laughter and the warm glow of the tree, Maya felt a new closeness to Ethan. They were no longer just strangers, but two souls searching for meaning during the holidays. Gathering her courage, she sang a few lines from an old carol she used to perform at the Harlem church, "Silent Night, Holy Night." Her voice was clear and gentle like a balm to the spirit. Ethan froze, time seeming to stop around him. "You have an incredible voice," he said, his voice catching slightly. "I bet your mom is proud." Maya smiled, but her eyes hinted at sadness. "I hope so, but sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing being here with you. I'm afraid I'll ruin everything you've worked for." Ethan stepped closer, lightly placing a hand on her shoulder. "Maya, you're not ruining anything. You're helping me see what matters. I don't want to return to life where I was just a machine chasing deals." But the warmth of the moment shattered when Ethan's phone buzzed. A text appeared on the screen. "The truth will come out at the Christmas event. Be ready." Ethan frowned, reading it aloud, his voice tinged with concern. Maya's heart tightened. "Who sent that?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "No idea. Could be a joke, but I don't think so." He checked his email and froze. A new message from Sophia. Attached was a photo of Maya curled up on a sidewalk in her worn coat, sitting beside a cardboard sign asking for help. The caption was cold and cutting. "Back off, Ethan, or this picture goes to the press. She's not worth your career." Maya looked over his shoulder, her face going pale. How did she get that photo? she whispered, her voice trembling. She felt exposed, her past weaponized against her. Ethan, if this goes public, they'll destroy you. I can't let that happen. She stood reaching for her coat, but Ethan caught her hand, pulling her back. Maya, stop. I don't care about that photo. Sophia and Victor want us to be afraid, but I won't let them win. Maya looked at him, tears shimmering in her eyes. But you don't understand. I've lived with that shame daily, those stares from strangers, the whispers behind my back. I don't want you to endure that because of me. Ethan gripped her hand tighter, his voice unwavering. I'd rather face shame with you than live a lie with them. Maya, you're the only person who's made me feel alive since my mother passed away. His words pierced her heart, melting away part of the fear. Maya thought of her mother, the woman who once said Christmas was the time to believe in miracles, even when everything seemed hopeless. Okay, she said, her voice soft but firm. We'll face this together. But Ethan, promise me you won't regret it. Ethan smiled, raising his hand in a promise. I promise. And you promise you won't leave no matter what happens. They turned back to the tree, the tinsel lights reflecting off their faces. Maya placed a plastic star on top and whispered, Mom, I hope I'm doing the right thing. Ethan stood beside her, feeling hope in the fast-approaching storm. But the anonymous message and Sophia's email loomed like dark clouds, a warning that the real trial had only just begun. Under the glow of Christmas lights, they stood together, ready to face whatever lay ahead, believing their bond was strong enough to endure. Morning in Manhattan was bitterly cold, the streets lightly dusted with snow, and the remnants of Christmas lights still twinkling from the night before. Ethan Caldwell stood in front of the towering office building of the investment firm where he had spent years building his career. His gray suit no longer carried its usual air of confidence. His shoulders slouched slightly, and his deep blue eyes reflected a mix of determination and worry. The anonymous text and Sophia's threatening email still haunted him, but his meeting with Victor, his boss, would determine everything. He gripped the velvet box in his pocket, the ring inside a reminder of what he had lost and what he was no longer willing to sacrifice. Maya Jackson sat by the window in room 204 of the Harbor Inn, watching the snowfall. Her old hoodie hugged her frame, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She thought about the night before, when she and Ethan decorated the small tree, when she sang a Christmas carol, and felt a glimmer of hope. But the photo Sophia had sent, an image of her curled up on the sidewalk, felt like a blade, reviving the fear of being exposed. She had promised Ethan she would stay, but the guilt gnawed at her. If I hadn't come into his life, would he be facing this now? She stood and decided to follow Ethan to the office secretly. I can't let him face this alone. Ethan entered Victor's office, the air cold, despite the heater running. Victor sat behind his desk, his sharp gaze peering through thin-rimmed glasses. Ethan, you finally made it, he said, calm but commanding. After last night, you've chosen the wrong path, but I'm still offering you a chance. Before Ethan could respond, the door opened and Sophia walked in, her dark coat somber, but her eyes gleaming with smug satisfaction. She placed a folder on the desk and opened it, revealing doctored online articles and the photo of Maya on the street. We have evidence of this toxic relationship, Sophia said coldly. You want to save your career? Come back to me. Clean up your image and forget that girl. Ethan felt the heat rise in his blood, but he kept his voice calm. You're threatening me, Sophia. And Victor, you're okay with this? Victor nodded his fingers, tapping the desk. Ethan, you're an asset to this firm, but we can't let you drag our reputation down. Get back with Sophia, sign the deal with PJ Investments, and this all disappears. Otherwise, those stories go public and you lose everything. Ethan looked at the photo of Maya, his heart aching. He thought of her voice singing carols, of the way she reminded him of his mother and the values he once believed in. "I'm not playing this game," he said firmly. "I don't need this firm or Sophia to prove my worth. Maya is the only one who sees the real me, not some puppet you control." He pushed the folder back toward Victor. "Fire me if you want, but I won't give her up." Victor frowned and pulled out a termination form from his drawer. "If that's your choice sign here, you'll lose everything: bonuses, reputation, your future." Sophia smirked, as if she had expected this outcome. Ethan picked up the pen, his hand trembling slightly, but his eyes were steady. He remembered Maya's words. "Christmas is when the heart leads." He signed his name each stroke, declaring that he chose to live honestly. Suddenly, the office door burst open, and Maya appeared breathless. She had slipped past the receptionist. She couldn't bear the thought of Ethan facing this alone. "Ethan," she called, her brown eyes full of worry. He froze, then smiled. "Maya, you shouldn't be here." She stepped forward, voice shaking. "I couldn't let you face this alone." "But what did you do?" She saw the contract on the desk and realized he had just signed it. Victor stood up, his tone icy. "You girl, you've destroyed his career." "Are you happy now?" Sophia sneered. "Such a shame, Ethan. She's not worth it." But Maya, though her heart ached, looked them in the eye. "I didn't destroy anything. Ethan chose to live honestly, something neither of you understand." She turned to Ethan, tears shimmering. "I'm sorry if I cost you everything." Ethan took her hand and pulled her close. "You didn't cost me anything, Maya. You helped me find myself." He looked at Victor and Sophia, his voice rising with clarity. "I'd rather have nothing than live how you want me to." He picked up his box of personal belongings and walked out hand in hand with Maya, leaving behind their furious stares. In the hallway, employees looked on, but Ethan didn't care. Maya walked beside him, feeling both heartbroken and proud. As they stepped out into the December cold, their hands still clasped tightly, Maya whispered, "What now?" Ethan looked at her, his eyes glowing with hope. "Now, we start over. Together." Under the faint glow of Christmas lights, they stood there knowing this decision would change everything, but also believing that friendship, and maybe something even more profound, would carry them through. Snow fell quietly outside the Harbor Inn, blanketing the Manhattan streets in a soft white layer. Christmas lights still twinkled faintly, even though the morning sun had risen. Inside, room 204. Maya Jackson sat cross-legged on the bed, her deep brown eyes watching Ethan Caldwell, typing away at the small desk. The gray suit he wore yesterday was gone, replaced by a navy sweater, but the fire in his eyes still burned with determination. After walking away from Victor's company, Ethan had nothing left but a box of personal items and a belief in a new beginning, one that Maya was an inseparable part of. "All right," Ethan said, turning the laptop toward her. "I just emailed James, my old mentor. He once told me I should start my firm, but I was too busy chasing Victor's approval to listen. I hope he still checks this email." Maya leaned in, reading the short message on the screen. It was a simple greeting, explaining Ethan's departure and proposing a new consulting firm focused on small businesses with a more human approach. "Sounds promising," she said, her tone carrying a flicker of excitement. "But do you think he'll respond?" Ethan shrugged, smiling. "We'll see. But I trust James. Unlike Victor, he believes in people, not just profits." Maya nodded, but unease still lingered in her heart. She thought about the photo Sophia had sent her, curled up on the sidewalk, her past laid bare. "If I stay with Ethan, will I drag him down?" She pushed the thought aside and looked at the little Christmas tree they had decorated the night before. The glittering tinsel seemed to whisper that the holiday was a time for hope. Maya returned with 2 cups of coffee from the lobby to break the tension. "We need energy," she said, handing Ethan a cup. "And I have an idea. If you want to consult for small businesses, I can help. I used to bartend. I've dealt with every kind of customer. I know what they need, not lofty plans, but practical solutions." Ethan looked at her, his eyes lighting up. "Are you serious, Maya? That's gold. We could combine my experience with your insights." They began sketching ideas, scribbling notes in a worn notebook Ethan found in his box. Maya proposed services like cost optimization for coffee shops and local event planning to attract community engagement concepts inspired by her long-lost dream of becoming an event organizer. "I used to dream of throwing Christmas parties like my mom did," she said softly, "where people came together, no matter rich or poor, just to share joy. Maybe we could help businesses do that." Ethan paused, looking at her with admiration. "Maya, you have a gift. Why didn't you say something before?" She shrugged, a bittersweet smile on her lips. "When living on the street, dreams feel like a luxury. But you make me think I can try again." Ethan put his pen down, his tone serious. "If we make this work, I'll help you realize that dream. A consulting firm, and you'll host the biggest Christmas event in New York one day." His words touched her deeply, but also stirred fear. She thought of her mother, who always believed Christmas was a time to start over. "Thank you, Ethan," she said, her voice catching. "But I'm still scared. If Sophia and Victor keep pushing, if they release that photo." Ethan took her hand, interrupting gently. "They've already done what they could. We're not running. We'll build something better right in front of them." Ethan's phone buzzed, cutting into their conversation. He opened it. It was a reply from James, short but full of promise. "Ethan, I heard about your departure. I have a project that fits your vision. Meet me this afternoon at the Innovation Hub. Bring the woman you mentioned." Ethan read it aloud, his eyes gleaming. "He wants to meet you, Maya." She froze. "Me? But I don't know anything about business." Ethan laughed. "You know people, and that's what matters most." They spent the morning preparing. Maya changed into a sweater and jeans from the bag Ethan had bought, doing her best to hide her nerves. She glanced at the little tree and whispered, "Mom, I'm trying to do what's right." Seeing her tense, Ethan suggested a break. "Let's do something fun before we go," he said, pulling a gingerbread cookie from their snack bag. "Consider it practice for your Christmas party." They shared the cookie, laughing as crumbs fell all over the table, a small moment that deepened their bond. That afternoon, they took a cab to the Innovation Hub, a modest red brick building that felt worlds away from Victor's sleek skyscraper. Maya held Ethan's hand as they entered, feeling like she was entering a new world. James, an older man with silver hair and a warm smile, greeted them. "Ethan, you've changed," he said, then turned to Maya. "And you must be Maya. I've heard a lot about you." Maya blushed, but smiled. "Nice to meet you, Mr. James." He led them into a small conference room where a whiteboard was covered with notes on startup projects. "I work with local investors to help small businesses grow without exploitation," he explained. "Ethan, your idea is a great fit. I want you and Maya to present it at tomorrow's Christmas event. If it lands, we may be able to fund you." Maya's heart raced, but under the table, Ethan squeezed her hand and whispered, "We've got this." They left the Innovation Hub with a spark of hope, but Maya knew tomorrow's event wouldn't be easy. Sophia and Victor might still lurk, ready to strike. Under the soft Christmas lights, she and Ethan walked hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next, believing that this new beginning could lead to a brighter future. Manhattan sparkled under Christmas lights, the streets adorned with tinsel and towering trees. But the air was tense inside the modest, red brick building of the Innovation Hub. Maya Jackson and Ethan Caldwell, stood before a small group of investors, their eyes flickering between anticipation and anxiety. In a green sweater and jeans, Maya clutched the microphone, her voice clear, but slightly trembling. Beside her, Ethan, white American sleeves rolled up, stood steady, his deep blue eyes burning with resolve. Today, they presented the vision for their new consulting company, a chance to start fresh after Ethan sacrificed his career to stand by Maya. The Innovation Hub's Christmas event radiated festivity, a glowing tree, soft carols playing, and the scent of gingerbread drifting through the room. Ethan opened with a calm, grounded voice, sharing his management experience and vision for a company that helped small businesses grow without exploitation. Maya followed, speaking from her past as a bartender, describing the real needs of coffee shop owners and local vendors. "We want to offer solutions that aren't just profit-driven, but people-driven," she said, her deep brown eyes shining sincerely. Some investors nodded, jotting notes, but a shadow lingered. Maya recalled the anonymous message. "The truth will be revealed at the Christmas event." Suddenly, the conference room doors swung open, slicing through their presentation. Sophia entered in a tight corporate dress, followed by Victor, Ethan's former boss, his gaze sharp and cold. Whispers rippled through the room as some attendees recognized them. Sophia smiled sweetly, but her voice dripped venom. How touching, Ethan. A heartwarming pitch about compassion from a man who just wrecked his career. She turned to the crowd and raised her phone. "But do you all know who this girl is? Maya Jackson, a homeless woman who begged on the streets." Maya felt the blood drain from her face as the image of her crouched on a sidewalk flashed on the large screen behind them. Murmurs spread. Curious eyes turned toward her. Victor stepped forward, his voice stern. "We're here to warn you. Ethan was once the star of my firm, but he chose this woman, and now they're here to sell you a sob story." Maya gripped the mic tightly, instinct telling her to flee. But she remembered her mother's words. "Christmas is the time you shine, even when someone tries to dim your light." Ethan took her hand, his voice rising. "Yes, Maya used to live on the streets, but she has nothing to hide. She taught me that a person's worth isn't measured by their bank account, but by their honesty." He turned to the crowd. "If you want to work with people who win by manipulation, choose them. But we're here to build something better." Maya took a deep breath, reclaiming her voice. "I have no degree, no status," she said, voice still shaking but firm. "But I know hardship. I know what small business owners need, not empty promises, but real support. If you want a partner who understands customers from the heart, give us a chance." The room fell silent. Then one investor stood and clapped. "I choose them," he said. "I want to work with people brave enough to stand up like that." Others followed, applause spreading through the room. Sophia's face paled. She tried to jump in. "Victor's firm can fund twice as much. You're risking everything on a failure and a street girl." But a woman in the audience cut her off. "We don't want money from manipulators. Ethan, Maya, please continue." Victor, face tight with fury, grabbed Sophia's arm and left the room. But everyone knew they had lost. After the event, James, Ethan's mentor, placed a proud hand on both their shoulders. "You did it. I'll set up a meeting with investors next week." Maya smiled, feeling like a weight had finally lifted. Under the soft glow of the Christmas tree, she and Ethan stood side by side, knowing they had just conquered their biggest test, ready now for the future ahead. The air inside the Innovation Hub still hummed with excitement after Ethan Caldwell and Maya Jackson's triumph over Sophia and Victor. The applause from the small investors gradually faded, but the lights of the giant Christmas tree in the corner still twinkled as if congratulating them. Maya stood still in her green sweater, her deep brown eyes wavering between joy and disbelief. She, a formerly homeless girl from Harlem, had just stood before a crowd and affirmed her worth. Ethan, the white American man beside her in a rolled-up dress shirt, looked at her with proud, unwavering eyes. Together they had overcome prejudice threats and the weight of the past to reach this moment, a fresh start, true to the spirit of Christmas. As the investors departed, James, their silver-haired mentor, approached and patted them both on the shoulder. "You two did it," he said warmly. "I've scheduled a meeting to sign with 3 local businesses next week. The pastry chain on 7th Street wants to be your first client." Maya froze, overwhelmed. "Really?" she whispered. James nodded. "Yes. And Maya, your idea for a Christmas event caught much attention. That might be your next project." Ethan laughed and wrapped his arm around her. "Told you, you've got talent." The hall gradually emptied, leaving only the soft glow of the tree and the gentle sound of Christmas carols. Ethan led Maya to a quiet corner where the silver ornaments shimmered like stars. "We need a moment to breathe," he said softly. Maya nodded, her heart racing from victory and being close to Ethan. She thought about their journey from that first meeting on a frozen sidewalk to this moment and wondered, could this be what Mom wanted me to find? Ethan pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket, the same one that once held the ring Sophia had rejected. He opened it, revealing the glittering diamond inside. But its light carried a new meaning now. "I used to think this was a promise of a perfect life," he said, voice thick with emotion. "But I was wrong. It only matters if it's for the right person." He looked directly into Maya's eyes. "This isn't a proposal, Maya. I don't want to pressure you. But I want you to keep it as a promise that I believe in you and us, and in the future we'll build together." Tears shimmered in Maya's eyes, her heart on the verge of overflowing. She looked at the ring, then at Ethan, the man who had given her shelter and a belief in her worth. "Ethan, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "I used to think I was invisible." Ethan stepped closer, gently touching her cheek. "You're not invisible, Maya. You're the brightest light I've seen since those Christmases with my mother." She smiled through her tears and extended her hand. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger, not as a symbol of marriage, but as a pledge of trust, friendship, and perhaps something more profound. The diamond sparkled under the tree's lights like a guiding star. Maya embraced him, resting her head on his shoulder, soaking in the warmth and security she hadn't felt since losing her mother. "Thank you, Ethan," she whispered, "for seeing me." Ethan held her tight, feeling that every pain, Sophia's rejection and his career collapse, had led him to this exact moment. "Thank you, Maya," he said, "for giving me a reason to begin again." They stood together in each other's arms, and then, as if moved by the spirit of Christmas, Ethan leaned in and kissed her, a soft, hopeful kiss, sealing the truth that love can bloom in the most unexpected places. Outside the window, snow began to fall. The flakes shimmered like the lights from the tree. Ethan's phone buzzed. It was a message from James' contract with the bakery is confirmed. "Merry Christmas." He read it aloud, and they both laughed, feeling like the universe had sent them a gift. "We did it," Maya said, her voice brimming with joy. She thought of her mother, of Christmas parties in Harlem, and knew that her mother was smiling somewhere. They left the innovation hub, stepping onto the snow-blanketed street, hand in hand. Christmas lights illuminated their faces as if the city was celebrating their victory. Maya looked down at the ring, then up at Ethan. "Where do you think we'll go from here?" she asked. Ethan smiled, eyes sparkling. "Anywhere as long as it's together. And I bet your first Christmas event is going to be legendary." Under the falling snow and twinkling lights, Ethan and Maya walked forward, carrying with them a promise for a bright future, where love and truth would always light the way. Christmas, with all its magic, had brought them together. And now their story would continue with a kiss beneath the tree.